Hello and welcome to Ikike Digest, your learning space on Home TV. On Ikike Digest, we aim to continuously bring to light environmental issues that affect communities, nationalities, and across board. In today's edition, we will be looking at a strategic desk on Health of Mother Earth Foundation that deals directly with youth and the younger generation. Health of Mother Earth Foundation is an ecological think tank organization advocating for environmental and climate justice and food sovereignty in Nigeria. As an environmental think tank, it innovated the move to work directly with youths and young people to see how youths can be co-opted into the fight for environmental justice. We'll be finding out today the roles these young people play in environmental issues. And with me in the studio today is Oponobasi. Oponobasi is the project lead for the Young Environmental Network and the Youth Desk. His passion for the environment moved him to engage with the youths. Welcome, Opono.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Also with me in the studio is Esele Ojanelu. She's an environmentalist and gender activist. She's a project officer handling the gender desk at HOMEF. Welcome, Esele.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here too.
Yeah. So today we will be looking at youth involvement and participation in the climate space. For my very first question, I'll be directing to you, Opono. We would like to know quickly what TN is all about.
All right, so TN is the Young Environmentalist Network. As the name implies, a network of young people who advocate or are concerned about environmental issues. Like you said, Health of Mother Earth Foundation is our parents' organization. And we at TN, we try to translate everything that HOMEF does to the younger generation. And the aim is to create a generation that is more environmental cautious and aware.
Thank you very much for that. Quickly answered. You said TN is the body that brings together the youths. So I want to know, Esele, what qualifies a person to be a young environmentalist?
Well, outside of the fact that environmental science is something you can study in the four walls of the university, as long as you're passionate about the environment and you care about the environment, you are an environmentalist. We have, with the TN, we look at the generation from teenage years, those in secondary school, up to the young adults, those in the higher institutions, where from they translate into our volunteers. So as long as you have the passion for the environment, to see that the environment is cared for, you understand that the environment is what you live on, and without, if you are not existing, the environment is fine. If you understand that the environment is all that you are for, you're a young environmentalist.
Mm-hmm. Some tricky terms there. You understand that you live for the environment, but the environment can live without you. Now, so I want to know, this young environmentalists and the volunteers you have in HOMEF, what role do they play in bringing or actualizing HOMEF's mission? You know, they are not core members of HOMEF, to say, but because you work with them, what are their roles to bring in our HOMEF's mission and vision?
Thank you very much. Like you said, the TN and volunteers at Health of Mother Earth Foundation, there are two ways they are involved. See that they are, like I said, we're trying to raise awareness, raise consciousness in terms of when it relates to environmental issues. So it's either they are helping us to pass out this information to create this awareness, or they are receiving it. So, you know, the older ones, the older young people, they are more like volunteers. So they help us to maybe organize events. They help us to carry out certain activities, you know, maybe on behalf of TN, you know. So they also help on their own through TN and by themselves individually to propagate this message.
But then I really would like to know why HOMEF is so interested in the youth with the young environmentalists. How does this fit into HOMEF's mission and the work you do in HOMEF?
All right. So the aim, especially in TN and HOMEF, is to raise, you know, like I said, the consciousness of the younger generation, you know, in terms of environmental issues. Now, there are different ways they could. Now, we hope or rather that we achieve this, two ways. I say a structured way and a subconscious approach, in which we try to, through our trainings, through our messaging, and whatever mode or whatever means we're using, we're getting them, like I said, getting them more conscious and more aware. So even without us telling them to do this and do that, when they're interacting with other people, maybe their friends, these things that they've picked up, by themselves subconsciously, they, pass it on to another person. Maybe someone training with dirty, be like, no, don't do that. This plastic is going to take maybe 1,000 years, 400 years for it to, decompose. Please don't do that, or, recycle it, or do this or do that. So aside from that, we also have, a more structured approach in which we have, we call them volunteers, these young people, let's say younger adults, through, workshops, through trainings, through strategic meetings, and we plan, okay, this is one way you can do this. This is an activity you can do. So there are two ways. Either we go through TN and we have a structured approach, or we try to, by the messaging, by the instilling of this message to them, they subconsciously just pass out that help us to achieve our mission.
You've been listening to Ikike's Digest on Home FTV. We'll be right back.
Tell community stories. We stand to decolonize false narratives and promote narratives and ideas that heal our land. We propel the just transition. This is Home FTV, your #1 environmental space.
Thank you for staying with us, and welcome back to Ikike's Digest. We have Uponobasi with us in the studio and Esele Ojanelu. I'll be directing this next question, to Esele. You've been working with you've been working on gender decks, working with the youths and as a gender activist. How do you engage youths to balance your space, balancing the youth work and the gender space?
As a gender and climate activist, I recognize that in the face of the escalating climate crisis going on in the world, and a lot of people are affected and impacted differently. Men, women, children, boys, young girls, persons with disabilities, the elderly.
Yes. So I'm going to come over to you now, Opono. Looking at how youths are taking over the space with social media, how do you intend to gather young environmentalists that would have that would impact and it will be effective? And when I mean impact, and having an effective impact on the work you do with the use of social media.
All right. That is I will not say a tricky question, but it's an interesting one. Okay, as usual, I'll attack it from two angles. The first is in TN we have different, let's say, modules we use to reach our aim. I'm just going to say the titles we give them: Eco Groove, TN Club, Eco Camp, Eco Festival. So some of these activities or these events, they are recorded and and they are uploaded online. So these are also learning platforms we use as well. So if they can't attend, if they can't be there physically, through this social media, with their Reels or YouTube, one way or the other, they can also see these things we're talking about, and they can get information from it.
Okay, so I want to probably rephrase the question. We know youths are really very engaged in social media right now, TikTok, Facebook, and all of it. How do you intend to have youths use this platform? How do you intend to encourage them to use these platforms to tell the stories of environment? You see people, they dance on TikTok. How do you intend to engage them to produce effective contents that would have impact on the environment?
Okay, it's kind of thoughts in my head at once. I thought it's escape. I think, funny enough, yes, it's not mainstream, but there are one or two few people that are already doing this thing I'm talking about. People already putting content that's environmental conscious, that's other people will say, I'm like, oh, okay. So I think those people should be targeted. We're trying to target them and see how we could collaborate with them. Because like you said, those challenges, people just going through their phone and they get to know about, let's say, songs or artists or different things. So, even, with this popular guy, Aproko Doctor. they
Yeah.
see is content, So there are people that, all young people that we can target. And like I said, as we are, I don't want to say grooming them, but as we are informing them, it's coming more and more subconscious, and through that it's also easier for them to, on their own,
Be involved.
be involved.
Well, that's really a good way to catch them with constant involvement and constant information that you put out. I'm very sure and I'm positive that the youth will pick this. So SLA, I'm going to ask you the next question now. Working with youths and as a gender activist, with what your colleague here has talked about, how do you intend to make this engagement with the young people more effective using environmental advocacy and activism?
Well, the one thing and one of the approaches that we use is we have our resource centers here in the organization, especially in our headquarters, where people can access information online because there's free access to the internet. We also have our collection of books in our library. We also have our School of Ecology that we tend to invite people, our volunteers, our young people, bring them together in a space, bring professionals and experts in the environmental space to come teach them and give them understanding on certain terms and certain things that are happening in the environment. And we also have dialogues and the one of our very peculiar one, the learning from the wise, where they get to sit with environmental experts who have been in the space for years to learn at their feet, to also engage with them and know what their new steps and actions can be for this present generation. So we have quite a lot of platforms under Health of Mother Earth Foundation that we use as an approach to reach out to the young people, to teach them and to also engage them. As a gender and climate activist, I recognize that the escalating climate crisis that is happening in the world, people are affected differently. Men are affected differently from women, children are affected differently from the elderly, and even the persons with disabilities are affected differently. I'll give an instance. In the year 2022, we had a flooding in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. And you can imagine what happened. Even though you were not there, you probably didn't see the news. But imagine an area that is flooded. People lost their livelihoods. Their sources of income was lost. They lost their homes, their food. They were hungry. So imagine a pregnant woman in that situation, or a person with disability, or a child. How would they survive? How did they survive? And not only was their livelihoods compromised, their health too was compromised. Now I'm talking from the angle of the women and the children and the persons with disabilities. Their health was compromised because some of them were able to find themselves and find their way into the IDP camps. And even in those camps, there was so much compromise. Their health was compromised. Food wasn't enough. You can imagine a young girl she's struggling to get sanitary towel to be able to put herself together monthly. So you can imagine how they were impacted differently from men. Now, we're not saying that men are not affected. They are. But the issues of climate crisis heighten the vulnerabilities of women, children, and persons with disabilities. So with that understanding, we try to engage more with this set of people, the young girls, in places where you find resource extraction, where you find a lot of extraction going on and exploration of resources. You hear a lot of violence, gender-based violence are happening to women and young girls. So that's a lot of work. So the approach that HomeF takes is to engage women, young girls, young boys in our different trainings, our dialogues, our TN programs, our volunteers in conferences, seminars, learning from the wise, and all of those to build their knowledge capacity, to also share experiences, and also to mention in 2023, we had an event where a capacity building on climate crisis adaptation and mitigation, where we trained women and young girls around the Edo State on how they can mitigate and adapt to the crisis of the climate. So the work we have been doing with HomeF is a lot, and that's why the approach we have been taking is something that we're expanding on and hoping to reach more young people from the primary section down to the higher institution.
Wow. Thank you so much for that very insightful journey into what HomeF is doing. You made mention of capacity building, professional developments, and all of it. So I really would want to know, HomeF has done a lot of capacity building for youths, for women, and all of it. But there must be a method. There must be something that has been set in place for the youth in terms of this capacity building. So how do you intend to use your young environmentalists to spread the message, to spread the gospel about having a clean environment? Because we know that this generation is phasing out. Yeah. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but their tenure is expiring. There's so much to be done with little time. I'm sure that's why HomeF has decided to put in place the Young Environmentalist Network. So how do you intend to bring them to talk more about having a cleaner space?
Okay, the question you asked, the answer is very, 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 very broad. Especially the tax, as well, is very, very broad. But the answer I'm going to give is quite broad because I think we have to target everybody, every profession, everybody we can, every mentor, every means we can. I'm talking about people that are willing to do research, people that are willing to enter, politics and get into positions with, with the right frame, mindsets. Want the people, the creative people, the artists, the comedians, whoever, we want every single mentor, every single means we can. We want to target everybody because we feel that everybody is important, in this struggle. So, like I said, the aim or the goal is very, very broad, and the task is very, very broad. But we have identified that it's important for us, not just to focus on one mentor alone. Let's say, just bringing them together. We're talking. We're not just going to do that. Also the conversation we'll be having, social media. They have many, many, many other mentors, like I say, we're trying to incorporate, in this our mission and goal.
So you've been listening to Ikike's Digest on HomeF TV. We've been talking to Uponobasi and Esele Ojanelo, and we're coming to the end of today's episode. But before we go, I would really want to have a very last word from both of you. And I'm going to ask a very simple, but yet very interesting question. How do you have youths? How do you get youths who are interested in joining TN or becoming a volunteer for HomeF, who have passion for the environment? How do they become members of TN?
All right. For right now, the easiest and the direct method is applying to be a volunteer at Health and Mother Earth Foundation. And you either do that, maybe a link that was shared, or the best and reliable way is to go to our website, that is www.homef.org. From there, you can see, where the link that will take you to volunteer for to be a volunteer for HomeF. And from that link, we would through reaching out and discussions and filling forms, we'll get to know, okay, this person is interested to join the youth desk, because we know that there are other desks at HomeF. The hunger politics, the food politics, culture, and community, and others, and also the gender, like my partner is here, talk about. So yeah, that is.
You've heard it. That's one way you can be a part of HomeF's TN's desk, by filling the form on the website to becoming a volunteer. And I'm going to come back to them again. One last word, your parting word for my listeners. I'm going to start with Esele. What is that one thing that is itching? You have the space, you have the time to tell me what's that one thing that is itching that you need people to hear. So over to you, Esele.
Okay, so I think at this point I should give my full attention to the camera. To everyone out there, every young person out there, I want you to see the environment as your own. Do not have the I don't care attitude. It's not my business. The one thing that pricks me, that I see outside daily, is when I see young people in a moving vehicle or just walking on the streets. They are done with their sachet water. They are done eating their biscuits. They are done taking the sweets of that gum, and they fling it out the window or throw it on the floor. Please, what happened to the nearest dustbin or trash bag? Or what happened to you stuffing it in your pocket till you get home to put it somewhere where it can be properly disposed? Please, 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 do not have the I don't care attitude. The environment can't survive without you, but you cannot survive with the environment. So please, just as you take care of your body, take care of the environment. Thank you.
All right. So for me, the message is very simple. I think it's for us to know that everything is interconnected. We are all connected. We should not look at anything I think is insignificant or it doesn't deserve our attention. So about, let's say, things of nature, other things that, that are correlated. So it's important for us to know that, everything that is in us, funny enough, one way or the other, is also we see it in nature. I'm talking about, different things. I'm not going to go too deep. Look at our anatomy, look at, the things that nature show, you will see the similarities. But basically, I'm just trying to say that we should know that everything is interconnected. We are connected with each other and we are connected with nature and with the environment. So we should know that and know that it's very important to keep our environment safe and protected. Thank you.
You heard it all. I need to say no more. You're connected to your environment. While you treat the environment well, remember the other beings that are in the environment. And on this note, we've come to the end of today's episode. And you would agree with me that it's been an exciting trip to HomeF's Youth Desk. And we've been speaking with Oponobasi, who is an environmentalist and the project lead at Health of Moderate Foundation, and also Esele Ojanelu, who is the gender and justice activist at HomeF. Thank you for being part of today's episode. Please join us next episode as we look into other environmental issues. But while you keep at it, please remember to follow us on all our social media handles on HomeF, Echo HomeF, www.homef.org. That's our web address, and also on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, and the rest of them using Echo HomeF. I remain your host, Kome Odomo.
Tell community stories. We stand to decolonize false narratives and promote narratives and ideas that heal our land. We propel the just transition. This is HomeF TV, your #1 environmentalist page.